Perfect. So let's kick it off and say welcome to everyone to this meetup for September 2023. We have 3 sessions today. First of all, we have Michael, then Ludwig and Jörgen, and I will move on to what they are talking about. And then we can tell you about the next meetup, and we have some time for discussions. The Orga team, as always. Jörgen, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. Yes, welcome everyone. My name is Jörgen Schladot. I'm working as a solution architect for Dynamics 365 customer engagement and Power Platform at Avanade, Germany. And I'm glad that today so many people are joining the session. And I'm also looking forward to what Michael and Ludwig are also presenting today. Thanks.
And Ludwig?
Yep, Ludwig, I'm working from Microsoft doing something with IT. And yeah, looking forward to tonight's session.
And my name is Lone, and I'm also working for Microsoft as a technical specialist for finance. So let's move on. The rules are simple as always. Say something if you have something useful to say, and don't be too critical for the people using their spare time to talk with us. And first session is Michael, who will tell us a little about how to become the best Power Platform admin. Next session is Ludwig, who is going to show something about RPA and machine automation with Lego and Scratch, which will be interesting to see, Ludwig, what you have, as you always say, best build. Then we have Jörgen, who will tell us about the superpowers of the new release wave on the customer engagement side. And in the end, we have discussions, and then also we can share that our next meetup will be 1 session in English and 1 in German. And we are doing at least 1 on-site, the one with Harald, we are doing on-site in Munich. So if you want to attend in Munich in person, you would have to write to me, which is also stated in the meetup. And that is the end. And over to you, Michael, to see if you can present your screen.
Let's try. So can you see my screen?
Yes, works.
Awesome, very good. Now I just have to be careful what to say since you're from Microsoft. Okay. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for inviting me. And here we are. We are talking, or I'm talking to how to become the best Power Platform administrator. Before I start, a few words about me. I'm Michael Roth. I'm from Germany, and I'm working as a manager for Experience Tech at Avanade, which is by far my most favorite job description title because no one really knows what that means. And so every time I introduce myself, I can basically make up what I do for a living. This topic I'm talking to you about, the Become the Best Power Platform Admin, is also on my blog. You can see my blog, michaelroth42.com, and find them also on LinkedIn and Twitter. So yeah, Manager Experience Tech. I usually work as a Power Platform consultant and solution architect at Avanade, but sometimes I'm free to do other things as well. All right, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going ahead. A quick peek at the agenda. I would first like to talk about what is an administrator and what tasks does an administrator have. And when we have covered that, we see what tools do you need. And I'm just showing the basics of the tools. And this is the Admin Center and the COE Starter Kit. And then I talk about a few things that make your life as an administrator a little bit easier. Some organizational stuff, some Power Automate, and a little bit of CLI. And then I have typical schedule and process and daily tasks or weekly tasks. And in the very end, I talk about useful resources for administrators. And I think that usually makes a nice round topic. All right. Then let's start with what is an administrator. what are the tasks of an administrator? And I found two good examples in the so-called internet. The first one is from Microsoft Learn, and I really like that a lot. Basically, the administrator has to protect your organization's data through access management. That means security role environments, DLPs, as well as monitor the platform, help with deployment of applications and solutions, do the updates and issue fixing. But actually, I think a very important point is missing in that, and that's why I looked around for another definition, and I found one in the Microsoft white paper for administering a low-code development platform. This is quite a mouthful, and this one was published by PowerCat team and with some help from the community and some experts. So here we have another good definitions, and that is about planning, securing, deploying, and supporting applications built on the platform. Then plan for applications being developed and deployed, and handle day-to-day administrative tasks to manage deployments. And with this one, and I like that as well, and I think both of them make a very good overview of what an administrator actually does. But with the one from the PowerCat team, I do have two issues, and I would really like to tell you which ones, because I see those way too often when I work with customers. And these are those two. And I will start with supporting applications. I often see administrators kind of working or have to work as a first level support. If something's not working, like a Power Automate flow is not running, I do get an error report. What do I do now? And it's good when you do that, and you can get into that role easily when you take care about the platform and work with it every day. But I always advise my customers to keep in mind that administrators are no support, don't have to build the support for how to build apps, how to fix errors. So administrators are not necessarily first level support. I think that is really, really important, because many have to do that. The other thing is the planning part, and it's a bit tricky with that, because administrators are securing and protecting and maintaining the platform, and that includes, of course, setting up the environments and data loss prevention policies. But actually, responsible for planning how to run the platform shouldn't be on the shoulders of administrators. I think the people who are able to align the technical possibilities that the platform offers with the overall business strategy shouldn't be a technical person on the administrator side. And they shouldn't be responsible for that. I think the planning part can only be done by a more or less low-code team consisting of business decision makers, administrators, and people from business. But people working as administrators can be part of that, but they don't have to be. And the responsibility for planning how the platform is going to be used in the organization shouldn't rely on the shoulders of the administrators. There are two serious issues that I have, and I think that are very important. But overall, this is a very good definition, actually. And when I dig deeper into that, I can take a look at what are the tasks of administrators. And we have four big parts to take care of. That is the securing, monitoring, alert, and act, and deployment. And if we look what's in that, usually for securing, I tend to like to speak about enable the cross-tenant isolation, setting up the DLPs, create environments according to the strategy. Once again, strategy usually comes from the business decision maker area, not from the administrators themselves. Then they have to manage security roles and define maybe a data gateway strategy. This is not a exclusive list, but I think that are the most important things when it comes to security. For monitoring, my first advice is always set up the COE, because the COE is short for Center of Excellence Data Kit. This is a really cool tool, and I'm going to talk about it later for a bit more. Then, of course, monitor new and custom connectors, so everything that's ever evolving in the platform. And check the resource usage, setup, sharing, alerts, and use audit logs. Alert and act usually is of thinking about environment requests. So what happens if a user needs a new environment? How do they get that? And we always can think about a compliance process, because usually as soon as the platform or the user mature a little bit, they are building quite complex applications and flows. And then compliance is a very important part, especially in Germany. And then, of course, the part of welcoming new makers, which is really important in my opinion, and I hardly see that at any of my customers. So I need to say that. Deployment, that usually is about the ALM, the application lifecycle management, and how to share apps with users. Now, as I said in the beginning, this isn't an exclusive list. There are more tasks, and they're dependent a little bit on your organization you're working in. And this alone can be quite a handful of work, actually. And there was a reason why I included this white paper earlier, because so this white paper I took the definition from. Because if you start reading this white paper, this is one of the first pages actually, is this one. Identify, so following this white paper, after you read it, your priorities should be identify the central team that will be implementing Power Platform governance and assign them the service admin role, which grants full access, yada, yada, yada. So after reading upon your tasks as an administrator, your first priority should be to identify a central team. And this is something that I really like that they put this in there, because when I think about the prior slide, this is a lot of work actually. And I always say, if people want to quote me or quote anything from my session, this is the moment, because Power Platform administration is too much for a single person to handle. And I see this over and over and over and over again with every customer. Usually I have an administrator working part-time as an administrator. Usually this is a power user who's familiar with the platform and went to the wrong meeting at the wrong time, and boom, now Power Platform administrator. And usually that gets out of hand quite quickly. So this is usually the sentence that I like to quote from this session, that it's just too much for a single person. Of course, if you're in an organization with, I don't know, 10, 15 people, then it might work. But as soon as you're a bigger organization, you need at least 2 people or kind of a team. Okay, this is a definition. What are the general tasks of an administrator or administrators you should have a team? And the core tools that you need are the Power Platform Admin Center. And I usually say PPAC, that's what the cool kids say out today. It's also in the quick link, aka.ms/PPAC. And the Center of Excellence Starter Time. Yeah, and this is the time where I realized that I want to show you a few things from the Power Platform Admin Center. And first I'm going to start with the admin analytics part. What? What happened? Okay. The analytics part, then tenant isolation and customer logbox. And I thought about including the licensing dashboard, which is in preview currently. I'm not sure about that, but now I realize I didn't prepare that actually. So first cool part of the demo. Let's see, I do have my admin center right here, and you should see the screen, right? Need some nodding or something, or like a thumbs up. Do you see the admin center? Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
All right, good. So the analytics part is an interesting part. So admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, or if you belong to the cool part, it's aka.ms/PPAC. There you have this analytics section in the settings here on the left-hand side. And I remember when I used that for the first time, I think that was a couple of months ago, actually, there wasn't too much information in there from my point of view. But now when I use it, it's getting better and better, and there is coming more and more functionality inside the admin center, especially in the last couple of weeks, actually. And yeah, you get this beautiful icon and the spinning bar. Okay, so what we have here for Power Automate Dataverse and Power Apps, this is at least a bit, is the usage. So an overview over all our environments, the whole tenant, what is usage, what is maker activity, and what is the inventory. This is, as you have seen earlier, a Power BI report. So it's real time, and I see basically everything that's going on in my tenant. I see the top flows with the maximum number of runs. I can see basically all the flows that I have in my environment, not in my environment, in my whole tenant. I can see the runs and the name of the environment. I do have the flow ID, and get some more information. What I think is a little bit sad is if I click on one of those, I see them down here. But I have a good idea what's important and which are the most important environments in my tenant. Of course, I can drill down, like we know that from Power BI. My internet is really slow today. Okay, we can filter the environments. We can filter all our environments that we have. We can filter for different state of environments and see now what's inside the environments. The next part is here the maker activity, which I really like for Power Platform adoption. That really helps to see who's very active and in which areas and departments you don't have too much activity. So where you might need to, I would say, support the people a bit more. And once again, we can see that there are some things, the top user activity, this is this user here, and this is the ID of the user. And maybe I'm a bad administrator because I don't know my users that good that I don't know their IDs, but I think this is something that could get a little improvement because I don't know who that is. Well, as I said, it's getting better and better, and it's always under construction. But I can see here the latest flows and who created those flows, when they run, and when they were published on which environment. And the inventory is a list of everything that happens in our tenant. Once again, we have our filters. We can see the last 30 days. And this is an important day, and we can go back to our 180 days, but this is the maximum amount that we can go back. We can filter the environments like in the tabs before and have a long list of all our Power Automate flows that we have here. So this is really nice. And we have now another tab, the environment view tab, where we can see, and this is the old state. This was first in the admin center, where we can see the runs, the usage, create errors, shares, and connectors for each environment slowly. Cloud flows and desktop flows are now included as well, so I like that a lot. And the Power Apps tab looks quite similar, actually. We have here the overview and the environment view. We got more or less the same. We should have more or less the same data. I don't know why we don't have data right here, right now. Let's see what the overview tab says. So okay, there is data. That's good. Yeah, it looks pretty similar to the Power Automate tab, and it's more or less the same information, and it gives a good overview in general what's going on in the tenant. So this got a lot better during this day, actually, and can be quite useful if you don't have the Center of Excellence at hand, or if, I don't know, you lost your account or something like that. So this is quite good right now. What I also really like in the admin center, and this is something that you may have missed, is something, let me see, that is not in preview anymore, but came into preview, I think this year or last year, I'm not sure. It's the tenant isolation part. And something this is quite important to know. Tenant isolation is the possibility to restrict inbound and outbound connections to other services in the internet or other tenants, actually, and other domains. So what could be happen, and the point is, per default, if you take a first look in the Power Platform Admin Center ever, this one is switched off, and you don't have any tenant rules in there at all. And this is important to know, actually, because what happens if you use a connector for the Power Platform for a third-party application, for example, Adobe Sign would be a nice one that I see in usage quite often. When you use a third-party connector, then you create a connection to a third-party tool, to a web service. And this is basically when it comes from your tenant to DocuSign, you send a document there, get it signed and get it back, then you create an outbound and then an inbound connection. The point is that if I would develop a flow basically from my private tenant and would connect it to my, let's say, organizational tenant, to this one here from Avanade, as long as I have credentials, I could do that and I can run this flow. And the point is, no data loss prevention or policy or any kind of security setting would detect this flow when it comes from another tenant, from another URL, actually, from another domain. So, and this is something that is quite delicate if you check your cross-tenant connections in the Center of Excellence Data Kit. Then you see all your outbound and inbound connections. And this is something that you might want to check, because there's a lot of possibilities for data leakage with tenant isolation if you haven't switched it on. So you should definitely check out the documentation on that. And at the end, I have a few links for that, and also the links to the documentation for tenant isolation. And you might want to dig into that and switch it on. This is really important if you haven't done that yet. The other thing I want to show is the customer logbox, which I really like as well. And this is a nice little feature. I think I don't have any logbox requests on here, but this is basically something when you have sensitive data on your tenant from your organization or maybe a customer's organization, and you have a support case with Microsoft. There are customers, especially in Germany, that I know that say, okay, we do have a support case, but we don't want that Microsoft sees our data. Our data is really sensitive and we want to keep it. We want to keep it secret. So the customer logs box, you can engage that. It only works with managed environments, though. That logs as soon as a Microsoft technician logs into your tenant, and you need to approve a request that they can see the data. And this is something very interesting if you have sensitive data or customer data. So you can just document if, who, and when people from Microsoft got access to this data. And this is something that is really nice. And I see that with a few customers now, they use it. And this one works really great, actually. Those are a few things I wanted to show you from the admin center that you might have missed before. And maybe, well, something went wrong. I don't know what's happening right now. So maybe, should we take a look at the licensing dashboard? Looks like everything from So licensing dashboard. Let's see. Nothing new, still in preview. And this is very interesting because you can see all the licenses that you have for Power Apps and F&O. And the idea is to see that I can show that in a certain environment, I guess. Have it here. Yeah, so you can check your single environments and you see how many licenses you have and how many active users you have. And if you have recommended actions, something like if you still have a Power Apps trial license for some of your users, you could consider assigning standalone Power Apps license. And if I click on that, I should be able to see the user that uses those trial licenses. Maybe I'm in the wrong environment. Maybe something's changed. Anyway, it's still in preview, but the idea is that you have apps or flows that are not properly licensed, that you can see that here. And you can also see in the environments or maybe in the summary, I have to check. Yes, how many assigned licenses do we have and how many active users do we have? And that's what I really like, because I have 5 assigned Power Apps Premium license and only 1 active user. So I might think about talking to my users to see if they use the license, if they need it or not, because if they don't need it, I'm paying for that. Let me see. Here we can see a little bit more. Here we have the Power Apps per user plan from the App Maker 3. And somewhere I have this one user who's still using the trial license, and I wanted to talk to this user because I don't really like trial licenses because you have to re-engage them every now and then. And it turned out the user was myself, but I don't find it now. Anyway, I think this is becoming really good. Once again, still in preview, but then you can see all the license that you have purchased and all the license you have assigned and your active users. If you have a gap in there, then you really want to consider how many licenses you are using. And I really like that feature. All right. Let's see, that wasn't too bad. It kind of worked. So this is more or less the admin center that you should know. If you work in administrator, you should know your way around. Maybe consider those things you have missed, maybe the tenant isolation feature or the customer logbox or the licensing dashboard. The other tool that you're really going to need is the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. And I usually say COE, that's the abbreviation for that. And if you don't know what that is, I give you a quick overview of the hard facts. It's more or less a Microsoft Garage project. So there's this PowerCat team. They work on that on a basically monthly basis. And this is something, it's a collection of round about 20 apps right now. We have 114 flows and 77 database tables that are bundled in solutions that you can download and use it. And those apps and flows are all inspiration for processes, for governance processes, basically. They work out of the box, but you can also customize them. And this all is around analytics and governance for Power Platform. They get constant upgrades basically every month, which is really nice. And they do have a support, well, kind of a support. This is in parentheses here because they run this whole thing, or they present it on GitHub. You can download it from GitHub and you can open a support ticket there or a new issue. And then you get answer from the community, from the PowerCat team, but not from Microsoft themselves. So this is kind of a garage thing. But this is one of the most important tools I use on a daily basis, basically. Once again, Tails says demo time, so I have to come up with the demo. Give me a sec to load it up. And then I show you around the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. Basically, we are already there. Okay, I upgraded it a bit. So this Center of Excellence Starter Kit are different solutions, or a few solutions. We have the governance components here. We have nurture components, core components, innovation backlog components, and a few more. Power Platform Administration Planning is a nice tool. It's a nice administrator planning app, basically. But the heart of it are the core components. And as I said, in this solution, we have 14 apps, 96 cloud flows. So you get a lot of things, 46 of those tables. And I want to show you a few apps that I really, really like. And I usually start with the Power Platform admin view. It's slow today. It's not a good demo day. Works. Play. Here we go. And this is my favorite app for every Power Platform administrator. It's a model-driven app that loads usually way faster. Something's wrong with my internet today. Here we go. So basically, we have the same information as in the admin center earlier. So we have an overview over our complete tenant. We can see all our environments that we have. We can see the number of apps and the number of flows per environment. We can see our most active makers, flow and app makers. It's always me. Awesome. And on the side menu here, we have a lot of information. If we click on Power Apps, then we can see all Power Apps that we have in our tenant, regardless of the environment. So it's a long, long, long list. We have 93 right now. And of course, we can filter, we can sort them, we can edit those filters, obviously, and edit those columns. And I will show you more about those columns, what kind of information we have in there later. The same thing goes for flows, for environments, for connectors, bots, desktop flows, and so on and so on. So we have a lot of information in here, even solutions, which I really, really like. We can see all our makers and our Power Platform users, and we can see all our connection identities. Connection identities are basically connections that we have with other domains or with third-party services. So the tenant isolation thing I showed you earlier, there we have a list of all outgoing and incoming connections that we have. If I click on that, it should be empty. Yes, it's empty. That's good because I shut our tenant off, and that's exactly how I want it. And basically, with this application, we get, I think, all the information that that there is about every Power Platform product. We have our bots in there, and we have the Power Pages in there. And if we click on these apps, we can get even more information, like a lot of information. We get the ID, the owner, if the app is orphaned, so if it has been used recently, and the type and the classification and everything that we need, description. We have a lot of more information here about governance, and this is something like a governance and compliance process that is within the COE that you can enable, where you ask makers to provide a business justification, what that app is and why is it needed, and who is going to be the administrator and who's working on that, and how critical and how important the business impact is. So the Center of Excellence Starter Kit gives you a lot of tools and ideas of how to come up with a compliance process. You can use the compliance process in here, or you can customize it and make your own, basically. And once again, as I said earlier, just the core solution gives us 14 apps. We have way more, I think over 20 now, and so many flows. It's almost insane. But the real cool thing that I really want to show in the Center of Excellence are those tables. Those Dataverse tables. So what happens when you import the solutions from the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and you start it, then you have a few synchronization flows that crawl through your tenant and gather all the information that you have, and they put it in those Dataverse tables. And let's just check the Power Apps app table, which I really like. I like all of them equally. And what I really like is we have over 100 columns in here they are packed with information. And if we just look through that, we have those classics like what is the name of the app, in which environment is the app, who's the owner of the app, all of that. We also have something like the complexity score. There's like an assessment app in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit to assess how important is this app and how critical is this app. And based on that assessment, you can get a complexity score, which is really nice. You can have all the connections that the app is using. Let's say for the case, if you don't want your users to use Dataverse or premium apps and flows in your default environment, then you can use this information in here to build something that informs you or notifies you if one of an app or flow is using Dataverse connection and is in default, for example. Some more nice information is app shared users and app shared groups. This is something I really like because with this information, when I see how many users are sharing this app and how many users are using this app, I get an idea of how important or business critical this app might be. And with that information, I even can build my own process of setting sharing limitations. The one that is very famous in the managed environments, but come with the obligation that it costs premium licenses. I can build this more or less myself with this information, which is really, really nice. So there's so much information, not just for apps, but for the flows, for business process flows, for your environments, for your users. For every one of those tables, you have over 100 columns and they're packed with information. If you want to build any process around Power Platform, managing the Power Platform or governing the Power Platform, you have the information that you need right here. And this is why I love the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. It's not necessarily the apps or the flows that they provide you with, but the information. And this is really, really nice. All right. That are the basic tools, the Admin Center and the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. Now for a few things that can make your life easier. And I hope you know that all already and you have an easy life with the Power Platform. But in case not, and I need to repeat that every time, organizational considerations. It's a team effort. and I say this over and over again because I hardly see this out there in the wild, you need a team of administrators, and you should have something like a low-code or Power Platform team that involves business decision makers, that involves people from the business and people from the technical side. Bring in those stakeholders, business decision maker, business and tech. I tend to repeat myself. And very important, get your users trained. And this is something I always say: the best security, regardless of the technology, are trained users. Now, of course, it is not the responsibility of the administrator to get the users trained, but maybe to poke HR or communication or whoever is responsible to get trainings for your users, because this really makes your life easier. If the user have a slight idea of what they are doing, you will get way less tickets and questions like, something's broke, I don't know what to do, or something like this. These are just 3 simple things, but that makes my life at least really, really easy, or a lot easier, if I know that I can delegate responsibilities to my stakeholders, like my business decision makers, my people in the business, and if I get my users trained. Another thing that really makes your life easier is Power Automate. Power Automate is my best friend as an administrator, and especially those 5 connectors that I love. Power Platform for admins, Power Apps for admins, Power Apps for makers, Power Automate for admins, and Power Automate management. I wanted to, I had the idea to show a few of my flows that I built with those, but then I realized that I'm not really, sometimes I build kind of strange flows and they're not that beautiful and they're not inside a solution always. So I decided to just go with the templates because they are way easier and they are easier to rebuild. And especially if you're not that good with Power Automate yet, those are really helpful. For example, those 4, I really like them for governance and administrational purposes. Get a list of new apps and flows and connectors, let's say on a weekly basis. This is just a template with a 5 clicks or something. This is a flow that is up and running and provides us with new information on a, let's say, weekly schedule. This is really handy. Another one is that notify me when the number of a flow is about to reach 250. And that is something that you can build for flows and for apps as well. That gives you an idea how popular an app is and how important an app may be. If you have a flow or an app that has over 250 users, then maybe you don't want to have that in your default environment because the default environment cannot be backed up. So if anyone fucks up, sorry for the language, but then you want to put it on a different environment just to have a backup. So this gives a nice indication. The next one is receive an email with a list of new custom connectors. This one is good as well because management of custom connectors is a little bit tricky sometimes, and I usually do that. I get a weekly email with new custom connectors that I can investigate and look at it, what they are doing, if there are any new ones. Good thing is there are not so many custom connectors I get on a weekly basis, so the workload is quite low. The next one is really, this one I really like, that's Save Power Apps for all environments to OneDrive Business on a daily basis. And I think, because for myself, application lifecycle management, ALM, is somewhat tricky and kind of complicated. And if you're new or don't have a technical background, then this is the first baby step into an ALM process. Just get a backup on your OneDrive. OneDrive is not the best place for a backup to live, but it's something. That is something where you can start, and I really like that. And I really appreciate when people are starting to do something, even if they don't know how to do it yet. This is the first step, and that's really cool. Another thing that comes to mind is that if you combine those connectors to the data that you have in the COE starter kit, then you can build really everything, nearly everything that you want. I mentioned it earlier, you want to get a notification when apps and flows are shared with more than 20 people. You can build it with that. You want to limit sharing apps and flows with groups. You can build it with the data from the COE. You want to put apps in a quarantine because it violates compliance guidelines. You can build it with that. So almost all the possibilities you can think of, you can build with a combination of those connectors and the Center of Excellence data. But sometimes you have a few limitations that you can't even do with Power Automate and the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. And therefore, you have the exciting world of CLI. And if you start to learn about that, this is actually a whole new world that is coming up. And I know that I've talked to many Power Platform administrators right now, and lots of them just doing this as I said, not as in a full-time job, but more or less on the side. And CLI can be complicated, it's very technical, but the good thing is Microsoft got us covered, and they published a few example scripts that help us. For example, a script that shows us all apps with custom connectors, or all apps with premium connectors, or all apps with on-prem connectors using data gateways. And this way you can get a lot of better information on that, and you can build upon those scripts. What I really like, for example, is the flow with HTTP actions to see that in a certain environment, for example. Once again, those HTTP actions use an open endpoint. This is something that I recommend to not have in your default environment where everyone has access. With this script, you can just get it and move those flows to a different environment, basically. Something that I usually show at this point is those commandlets from this Microsoft Power Apps Administration PowerShell module. Is a PowerShell module, and let me just see if I can come up with that really. Run administrator. Nope. Here we go. It's loading up. Nope, now I lost it. Here we go. Things are not working. Okay, now let's try to get a list of all the commands that are in this module. This one is called Microsoft.PowerApps.administration.PowerShell. Nope. Do I have a typo? Get command module. Yep, I think I found it. Here we go. So this is a list of all the commands that we have in this PowerShell module, this one here. And it's quite a long list, actually. So if you come to your limits with PowerShell, then with Power Automate, then PowerShell can maybe help you out. We have a few things that we can do only with PowerShell and with the CLI. For example, manage the consent plans for trial and developer licenses. If you don't want your users to use those, you can shut it out with PowerShell. We have the basically bulk management is pretty good with that. If you want to change the ownership from one user account to another, 50 or 100 flows, apps and owners or something like that, PowerShell makes it really, really easy. Otherwise, you have like lots of work. You can, of course, change the standard storage of custom SharePoint forms. They usually live in the default environment. If you want to change that, that works with here as well. And one of my favorites is where do we have it? I don't find it. There are just too many. If you want to set flows that they run in the context of an app, that is something very important, especially for licensing now, but we can do that in the UI now as well. Still, we have a lot of things that we can do with the CLI that is not possible with the Power Automate. So if you're familiar with the Power Automate for administration connectors and you want the next step in your journey, then I recommend CLI or PowerShell commandlets to work that. And what I want to do right now, or what I'm doing right now quite often with my customers, is something that I use my scripts that I have in PowerShell, but when people are not that familiar with PowerShell or don't have the administration rights, then we set up a Power Automate flow, actually, that uses an Azure automation account, which inherits a runbook, and that can run PowerShell scripts. So that way we have all the power from the CLI without the necessity to be a global admin to use PowerShell, for example, or if people are not familiar with the CLI and don't want to work with it because it's quite techy and you don't have a nice user interface. So this is possible, and this is really nice. Okay, I'm with 40 minutes, so I should come to an end, more or less. Let's take a quick look at the typical schedule and processes. And this may vary from organization to organization. I usually recommend on a daily schedule to respond to users, tickets, and requests and check the notification. On a weekly basis, we check news and updates from the community and from Microsoft. And I usually recommend the Power Platform weekly newsletter, which is really, really great, and monitor the custom connectors. And on a monthly basis, we have the review usage analytics and resource consumptions to identify any trends or issues if you need more space or not. Then review and update documentation, because this is something that is not done very often or very well, to document your technical settings on your tenant. Then review and update training materials for Power Platform users, if you have those. I know a lot of organizations that have like a team site or a SharePoint site where they have just links to MS Learn or to other blogs or YouTube videos or something. Review those once in a while if there are new ones or if few are outdated. Then you can check if everything's archived, maybe on your OneDrive or maybe in a GitHub repository, however you do it, but check if everything is archived. And clean up old objects, apps, and flows and environments, because that happens a lot. And if you don't want to be like me, then check if your automation is still running. I had it recently that I have a few flows running that did a few things for me, and basically a few of them failed, and I didn't realize that. So that was a bad awakening, basically. So those are typical tasks that I recommend for Power Platform administrators. But then, of course, it depends on your processes. Do you have a cleanup process, an automated one or a regular one? Do you have a compliance process, on and offboarding, inactivity, or environment request? Those are basically the example processes that the COE will help you with. If you have those, then maybe you have some task with them. That can be. And now I'm already coming to my last point, and this is resources. And the best resource you can use is your own knowledge. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but what do I mean with that? Of course, I mean documentation. God damn it. You need two things. I've got documentation, and this is a technical governance document. This is where you set up everything, where you write down everything that you set up in your tenant. And the other thing is a user face document, because first of all, users don't read. I think we know all that. But on the other hand, if you have a technical governance document, they tend to get very long and they are technical, just as the name says. And users typically don't read those, and they don't like to read those. So a kind of user-friendly document is really necessary to explain what kind of governance rules and regulations you have in place for Power Platform in your organization, so that they know which environment to use, what they are allowed to do, how to get a premium license, all that kind of things. Luckily, once again, Microsoft got us covered with the Power Platform Hub. I got the link to that in the documentation in the end as well. The Power Platform Hub is basically a SharePoint site collection that covers all of that around environments, data loss prevention policies, how to move resources in Power Platform. And this is a template that can be deployed with a PowerShell script. And within 10 minutes, you have a complete site collection with all those things. And you just need to fill in your specific things for your environments, like how are your environments named? Who is your administrator? Do you have a support line? Something like that. And for the technical governance, I got you covered, because I got a free template of everything you need to consider, to maybe write down from a technical point of view. This is a link to my GitHub repository where I got it stored, and you can just download it. It's a Word document with lots of headings, and you can just fill it in and use it. Just be free. So quick wrap up. How to become the best Power Platform admin. Get a team, because it's a lot of work. You are not first level support. This is something I need to repeat over and over again. Then strategy can, but must not be part of your responsibility. You can get involved, you don't have to. You should know the Admin Center by heart and utilize the COE Starter Kit. You should automate your task and notifications according to your technical skills. If you want to use the templates from Power Automate, that's fine. If you are really technical and dive into the CLI scripts, go for it. But automation really makes your life easier, obviously. Learn the CLI possibilities. This should be like an end goal. I really, really recommend that. Then documentation, 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 and some documentation. This is something that almost every organization lacks. And the best security are trained users. This is my baseline. And now hitting the 45-minute baseline. Thank you so much. You did it. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. I think there was a lot going on in the chat. I don't know if you guys want to come off mute if you have something to ask, Michael.
Yes, you can ask questions if you want.
Ludwig.
I don't know.
Okay,
do you want to start out, Ludwig?
Yeah. So first thing is, what is the feedback that you get from customers about managed environments? What do they say?
As soon as they learn that they have more or less endless possibilities to create new environments, they like that, and then they come back to say, wow, this is really confusing. How do we get our users to find the right or their right environments? This is something, but I think last week or the week before, environment routing was published so that you can route your users to their developer environment, which is nice. And the other thing is, should we use developer environments or not? And this is, I'm a consultant. I always say it depends. It depends on your overall strategy. But yeah.
Okay, maybe another question about this administration and governance. If I'm a company that just starts with Power Platform, would you recommend just setting up all these things from the beginning, or start first creating your first apps and flows, and then maybe in a couple of weeks or months take care of the administration?
Yep. I always recommend to set up the governance and the environments and you do your piece first, and then you can scale it up later on and on. The point is, and this is with every customer I talked so far, like every single one. I'm like, do you use a Power Platform? Do you have tried it out? Nope, we haven't done it. No user ever touched the Power Platform. There's nothing in there. In our channels, we say, okay. Then you spin up the COE and you take a look under the hood and you're like, okay, you have 20 Power Pages. We got 66 flows, and like you find all those things. Like you always have to clean up. You always find something because let's face it, Microsoft makes it quite easy to find a button in SharePoint that says automate. Let's click it, see what happens. So I recommend to set up your strategy first, then your guidelines according to that strategy, your environments, your DLPs, your security groups and roles, and then start communicating to your users that we have something cool new like the Power Platform.
Okay. I think Jonas had some questions as well.
Yeah, I have one. So where I worked previously, we tried to implement local administrators, and we called them power admins, simply to get the administrators closer to the business and reduce the workload on our group function admins. What are your experience implementing this?
Do you mean the environment admins?
Environment admins, first level support. Simply they get an ITSM request, create an environment, do some maintenance, and then do it instead of having the global admins to do it. And also if there is some issue with an app and so on.
Usually I have very good experience with that because, as I said like multiple times now, it's a group effort and you need a team. And if you distribute the workload on multiple shoulders, that will make it easier for everyone to work with it, especially for the administrators. But on the other hand, you will get more users to work with Power Platform to get familiar with that. So it gets easier for them, and it gets more of this platform vibe. There's something that it's based there, and it's meant to stay, like the Office 365, which is a platform as well. You have different tools in there and you use it, and now users are getting more and more familiar with that. The more users you share the information with and share the actual workload with, the easier it gets for everyone. So I usually recommend doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I see another question. That was from you, Ludwig. Feedback about managed environments. And this one is quite mixed, actually. Because people love the functionality that come with the managed environments, and it gets more and more, but they don't like to have to pay premium licenses.
Yeah, I
But
heard
that's
that.
the usual thing. We want the stuff, but we want it for free, please. Yeah. Well, but I think sooner or later we don't get rid of managed environments, especially when I see the roadmap, what's coming to managed environments. There's a lot of stuff in there. So I don't know what Microsoft's plan is here, but I think it looks like to have every user with a premium license sooner or later.
And
Can you deny or confirm?
well, I mean, neither nor. But what is your how to say best guess for the center of excellence? Will it sooner or later be replaced by managed environments, or will it
Last
stay?
week I would have said no chance. But now I've seen a few things in preview, like the Power Apps catalog, for example. I just installed this today. This is one of the features from the COE where you can have a showcasing app. Basically, it shows you all the apps that you want to put in there. So regardless of the environment, the users, and you can see all the applications that you want to show. And this is something that is now in preview for managed environments as well. So I don't know. We will see.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? Thank you so much for joining, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Amazing session. Amazing session. Really good. And now we are over to the next Power Platform guy. And I see you are not even wearing a hat today, Ludwig.
No, today no hat. I have. Wait a minute. Let me start first with some small slides, and then I think you will not miss the hat. So try to switch a bit here. Okay, and actually, I plan to do it with my little one. But my son, he's on a school vacation or a trip or something, so he could not make it today. That's why I have to kind of, yeah, make a workaround, but you will see that. So what we try to do is actually, we wanted to see, similar to what Jonas probably did, how we can use our Lego robot. We have a Lego robot that already a couple of years that you can control through an app. And you can also use Scratch. If you do not know Scratch, you will see it in a couple of minutes. It's basically for kids to learn programming. And we wanted to see, can we kind of use it together, because we wanted to control more than this single robot. Let me switch the slide. Yeah, so short agenda. I will quickly show you the process, and then I will try to do the demo, but I have not my assistant with me, so it will be a bit difficult, but let's see. And then I will give you some tips on configuration and close with a summary. So it will not take long, maybe 10 minutes, I guess. So what we did is, okay, we have here on the left-hand side a robber. And in the middle, there is a treasure. And of course, what does this person want? Wants to steal the gold. And then, okay, we said, how can we stop this man or person from stealing our stuff? Okay, we put an IoT camera. What is this thing doing? Well, it triggers basically an email. It sends an email out, and this triggers a flow. And from there, we can come to Scratch. So on the right-hand side, you see a screenshot of Scratch, but I will show you this also in a second. It's really very easy to use. And with Scratch, you can actually control a robot. And that's our, I think it's called Bernie or Bernie. The robot then should catch the thief. So that was our sketch. And that's what we want to show you next. So let's try to switch to my screen. And Lone, now you have to help me a bit, because I show a couple of screens. And question is, do you see here on the left hand side my webcam, my camera?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. So I just put my pen here. So that's the robot. That's Lego. That's the police station here behind. The big box is our gold treasure, and in front we have the house and the IoT camera. And on the lower side, lower left hand side, I show you my email. So if somebody is breaking in here, there will be an email coming up and trigger this flow. So, but at the moment I have switched off my camera. So let me quickly show you how this works. So I try to put it in front. So that's the IP camera. I have to enable it. So now it's checking if somebody is coming. And unfortunately, I do not have my assistant. So I have here a construction. You will see this is the guy on the motorcycle here on a stick. And I will try to put it in front of the house to simulate the break-in. So let's see if I can do it. And then, okay, I don't know if you hear a sound, yeah, but now I get a message on my mobile phone. You see on the left-hand side, there is a message coming into my mailbox. And if everything works, the flow should run, and then this little man should hopefully then do something. Let's wait a second, and hopefully the screen recording works, because I never tried that before. Takes usually a minute or so until it runs, but should ultimately work. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, and yeah, while waiting, well, if you have not seen Scratch, you will see it hopefully soon. And then, yeah, now Scratch opens. The robot is driving and catches the thief. Okay, so actually, that's all what we prepared so far. The idea was just to use a bit Scratch. It looks like kind of Power Automate. You have some blocks, you have some things that you program, and yeah, that you can use, and not only to control robots, but also other things. And that's what I want to ask you at the end. So let me try to come back to my PowerPoint after this short demo and show you some of the things that we experienced. Yeah. So while setting up this thing, we noticed there's a lot of Lego stuff around where you have apps. Yeah, there's, for example, this Lego Boost app that can actually control a Lego robot. There are many other Lego apps, but the problem is they don't work on Windows PCs. I think also not on Apple, but usually with personal computers, they don't like it. So that's why we came up with the idea using Scratch to learn programming and do some funny things. And then while using Scratch, we noticed there's a problem because if you download this small little app, then it does not connect to your robot, because you need here a small connector. It's called Scratch Link. And with this one, you can then control this. And then behind the scene is just a very, very simple RPA flow. So here I have my trigger. When a special email from an email account arrives, then I run here a desktop flow. And this one basically triggers Scratch and then does the fetching. So it's really easy to set up. And as a summary, easy to implement. You can control, well, maybe some small machines, maybe your coffee machine, maybe something else, maybe your oven and make a pizza. But I would not probably use it for business critical things. And if you have time, then you can, and if you're in Munich for the Powerton event in November, then we will show you something else, because we extended this Scratch thing a bit, and we used a couple of drones and the robot, of course, again. to do something with Star Wars. So if you want to see Darth Vader and yeah, maybe Yoda in action with robotic process automation and some toys for kids, then come and join us. We will be there in Munich to demo that. So that's all what we wanted to show. Unfortunately, I was alone today and yeah, could not bring my little one. But I hope you got the idea and can do something similar.
Thank you, Ludwig. And we are looking forward to November to the Powerton. I hope some of you are joining on site in Munich or one of the other places that we are having Powerton. We can put in the link to the Powerton also so you can join the event.
Yep.
Any
And
questions
we will bring 2 drones. We will bring this robot and something else. So come and join us.
And we know for a fact that Lego is actually also using a Power Platform.
Yeah.
So yeah. Good. Any questions to Ludwig?
The robot
No?
cannot make pizza. Sorry.
I think you and Jonas could be a dangerous combination.
Yeah.
Then it's over to you, Jörgen.
Yes, thanks. I will share my screen. Can you see the slide
Yep.
from today?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So today I will talk about, yeah, already talked about me. So I will talk about the upcoming Power Platform and D365 Wave update. And why I'm talking about it is often it's not very common or a common understanding that these wave updates will occur twice a year. So there is no way to get out of these updates that will be handled by Microsoft. And there are 2 times in the year, in April and October, where all Dataverse environments in the Power Platform, which includes also the Dynamics 365 customer engagement apps, and in the future, maybe also F&O apps, will get updates. And you have to plan it. You have to use the early access that it's available about 2 months prior the official update by Microsoft, and make yourself, yeah, get a common understanding what will change, what features will be available. And not everything is available in the early access. Not everything will be available in April or in October. So it's always a time frame beginning either in April until end of September, and then from October until next year in March, where all the features that are part of a release wave will be deployed. Microsoft provides several kind of information where you can have a look at the different applications or as a platform to get an understanding what will be deployed. So since about a year, there's a release plan which you can see on the right side available, which is a dynamic website where you can filter through the list of all features that will be deployed. And in addition, there are also always the PDF files with several hundred pages that you can scroll through to get an understanding what features will be deployed. The QR codes should bring you directly to the pages and the links that I'm linking through this PowerPoint presentation. As said, early access or the information will be available 2 months prior to the updates. So the early access is now available already since July 31st. And you have to activate it in the Power Platform Admin Center. So for each environment, you have the possibility to go to the environment, click on the Manage next to the updates, and then you will guide it through a small wizard we have to click on Update Now and confirm the update. But the strong recommendation here is not to use any development or production environments for this testing. You have to use a trial environment or a separate copy of your environment if you want to test your own developed solutions. Because what will happen when you activate the early access, these environments will be skipped by Microsoft, and the general available version will not be provided on the release weekend to these environments. So you have to manually make refresh these environments afterwards so that they get the newest version. And another information is that these release waves will not be deployed to all tenants worldwide on the same day. So when I say beginning of October and beginning of April, there will be waves or cycles when these will be scheduled through different regions worldwide. And for Europe, for example, it will be the weekend of the 13th to the 16th of October, where all tenants in Europe will get the new update of the platform. And also maybe differently to F&O colleagues, these updates cannot be skipped. So on the F&O side, you have, I think, twice a year the possible, or you can skip some updates. On the CE platform, you cannot skip these updates, they will be rolled out. And here you can find a list with the deployment schedule for different regions if you're not if your tenant is not located in Europe. So as I said, there are a lot of features coming, and what I try to do is give a selection of what I found would be some highlights personally for me, and also talking with colleagues or customers that will be rolled out in this release cycle. And I split them through the different apps on the Power Platform and on Dynamics 365. And there will be a separate part at the end where I have a look at all the Copilot features that will be enabled, because this time, as well as in April, there are several features where Copilot is mentioned, and I didn't want to mix it up with Dataverse or sales apps, etc. I will not go to each of these features, but for example, for Dataverse, I really like the enhanced formula columns. So the formula columns have been introduced already in April, but not with all functionality that is, for example, available with formula columns and roll-up fields in the classic CRM or Power Platform. And now with this release cycle, you will get their functionalities which allow you to use PowerFX formulas instead of calculated fields and roll-up fields, which makes them more powerful. And maybe also a reference to what Michael said at the beginning. There is now a tool or a feature which allows you to check which users have access to a specific record. So this is also an admin feature and helping to govern your environments. And the last feature I want to point out, there's a specific column type at the moment only for emails, which will allow you to check email, for example, also if the tenant of the email or the domain of the email is available, or if there's a real domain. And this will help you to generate clean data. And in future updates, as already mentioned, other column types should follow, helping you to get a better or cleaner data. Then there are some Power Platform Dynamics integrations features that will be introduced with this release wave. As said, in the session in January, I think we had Lane Swenker, who talked about one Dynamics, one platform. So now there are some features related to finance and operations, applications, development on the Power Platform, and also the support for asynchronous dual write will be part of this release wave, which is very interesting when you have these scenarios where you combine CE and F&O by dual write. For the Power applications, I picked out some features. For example, the PowerFX toolbar or PowerFX column where you write your code at the moment is a very small line, or if you enlarge it, it will cover your screen. So there will be the possibility to move it around or have it on the side to have a better position for coding. And there will be a set of new responsive layout templates that you can use. And you don't have to start with this template that is there since the beginning with browse, gallery, and the third screen to get the details. So there will be new templates available. So on the left side, you see what Microsoft is providing as a screenshot for the new templates, which should be responsive. So it automatically change between, for example, tablet size and mobile phone size and vertical and horizontal screening. And on the right side, you can see that the PowerFX bar is not anymore on the top, but you can select to have it on the right side, and you have different selections where you can put your PowerFX coding bar. For Power Automate, there are also some features available. Sorry, I have to stop the video. For Power Automate, there are also some features available. For example, the execution of a Cloudflow is now possible to have more than 30 days. And in addition, if you have users who left your organization and created flows, at the moment it's not very easy to find these flows. Even with the Center of Excellence, you have some struggle here, and with Manage Abandoned Cloud Flows, you can select not only one cloud flow, but several cloud flows, and for example, stop these or assign to a new owner. For the Power Pages, at the moment, these are running with Bootstrap, which is a framework for CSS. So who is in web development knows CSS and Bootstrap. It's, as I said, now at version 3 for Power Pages, and it will be updated to version 5. And there should be also some migration paths for existing Power Pages once the update will be rolled out, so you can move your existing pages from Bootstrap version 3 to 5. Then coming to the Dynamics 365 apps. So there's another renaming or combination. So Dynamics 365 Marketing will be combined with Customer Insights, and it will be renamed to Customer Insights Journey. So you will have the original Customer Insights data, and marketing will be Customer Insights, will become Customer Insights Germany, or the renaming has already taken place. And besides lots of Copilot features there, I find it very interesting that the integration between sales and marketing has been become more integrated with, or will become more integrated with this release. So handing over leads to routing it to the correct sales rep will become more powerful. And also there will be business rules or rules to help qualify the lead once the lead is likely to buy something. In this D365 Sales app, you will now have the possibility to send out SMS, and not only to send out SMS, but there will be a SMS chat pane so you can really communicate with a customer by SMS. Then there will be some rules, routing rules as well on the sales side, which will allow the seller to proactively pick records based on business rules. And in addition, the playbook had been deprecated. The follow-up tool is sequences. And at the moment, it's only possible to use one sequence. And in the future, it will be possible to run multiple sequences simultaneously on the same record. Sorry. So here, this is a screenshot of the qualifying rules, business rules, that is provided in the documentation. On the customer service app, there's mentioned that it will be possible to pin and unpin records in the timeline. So for example, if you have a lot of records in your conversation with a customer and you have to pin important ones, these will stay at the top of the timeline and you don't have to filter or search them in the timeline, which is quite helpful in these customer service conversations. And also there will be some automation to route the calls to agents which have the longest idle time. So this is also a new feature which will be introduced. For the field service app, the form itself will get a new visualization and improved work order experience. And for everyone who already set up work hour calendars, at the moment it's only possible to use one recurrence. In the future, it will be possible to use multiple recurrences, which will make the work with setting up work hour calendars really more easy. And at the moment, it's only possible to or supported to generate a work order from an opportunity. In the future, it should be possible to also generate it from a quote. And these are the screenshots of the new mobile, new work order form for the field service application. Now coming already to the Copilot feature. So for the Power Platform, I picked the Power Virtual Agent. There are two features which I find stand a little bit out. So Dataverse and SharePoint will be used as source for AI-generated answers in the Power Virtual Agent. And this will respect the security. So only the records that you're allowed to see will be used in the Power Virtual Agents. In the field service area, there are several improvements. For example, you can get a recap of your work order. So when you want to get information about what has happened on your work order, you get a brief summary. You can create work orders directly out of Outlook or Teams, and based on the message or the email where you start, there will be already, this input will be used to generate the work order. And in addition, the AI functionality should also be used for resource scheduling from within Outlook. And this. So here you see these summaries of the work order. And in Teams and Outlook, there is this analysis of the email, which will help you to create the work orders from within the messages. In the sales area, Copilot will be used also to give you a recap or summary and to get a better understanding of your leads, opportunities, and the account. And to help you prepare meetings. So everything is around knowing your customer and your opportunities better by AI, and to get these brief summaries. And also, this is also something which is in the customer service application, to create output easily that can be used for writing emails, for example. So here you can see these brief summaries. And it's also mentioned that you can use, for example, if you have integrated Dynamics 365 with Teams, you can ask inside Teams the Copilot chatbot, for example, for information about an opportunity or information about your account, and then you will get this information also within the Copilot chatbot in Teams, and always with a link to what they are referring to, so that you can directly jump to the original source information. For marketing, Copilot should be used, or can be used, to create journeys based on native language. And in addition, which I think is a pretty good feature, is it will be used to prevent messages to be sent out during unwanted timeframes. So, for example, if you specify that a customer should not be contacted on the weekend, and you want to send out an email campaign to this specific customer on the weekend, then it will be blocked until then the blocked time frame is over, and then the email will be sent out. Here you can see the creation of the journeys by native language, and here's a quiet date configuration in marketing. And yeah, as said, for customer service, their Copilot can be used to create answers to the customer, draft emails based on the knowledge articles, or easily find knowledge articles that can be then shared with a customer. And it should also be possible to personalize these answers by Copilot. So this was the brief run through the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 release wave notifications. And I can provide these slides afterwards on our website, or also on GitHub, so that you have the links with the QR codes to each of these informations. Yes, Ludwig.
I have a question.
Yes.
At the beginning, we had Michael talking about Power Platform, administration, governance, and so on. And you showed that F&O is becoming an app inside of the Power Platform. So do you expect to see some changes how we deploy finance and operations in the future?
I think that's a good question. So when you look at the it's currently, I would say, in preview, public preview, as I'm read it correctly, and you already have the possibility to, if you have the finance operations license, you can select finance operations applications in the Power Platform Admin Center. As far as I understood, the first step will be that the LLC, I think it's called, on finance operations side, will be replaced by the Power Platform Admin Center. This is the first step. And I think Lane, as mentioned before, already talked about this one Dynamics, one platform at the beginning of the year, and there was also some timeline in the presentation. So I think this is really referring to what was said at the beginning of the year, that with this release cycle, we will get these first combinations of F&O and Power Platform. And where it ends, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's already quite a good article from a Dynamics 365 F&O MVP, I think in France, who wrote a really huge blog article about how to use or how to enable the developer environments, F&O developer environments, and how to connect Visual Studio with finance and operations. Yeah, so this is already the beginning, I would say. Let me have a look. I'll find it.
Yeah, would be interesting to see. Especially, Michael, there are pipelines, right, for low-code users. Would be interesting to see if this is one day available for F&O.
Absolutely, yes. That would make things easier and let people grow together. Like people from the F&O side are usually a little bit, but that's just because I don't have a clue about F&O.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to ask, and maybe this is also for Michael and for Jörgen, what's your experience with the Copilot so far? Good or bad?
From my point of view, I would say the Copilot in Power Automate really helps a lot with different things. With Power Apps, not so much, but I can see that many citizen developers that it helps many citizen developers actually to come up with a good data structure and tables in the backend, so to say. That I think that makes it easier to get the first steps out of the way and just to accelerate your learning journey, I would say.
One thing I found, and I didn't have it in the list, and when you talked about it, Michael, about documentation,
yeah,
there's one Copilot feature which allows you to generate automatically a summary what your app will do. So this could be used for what you meant, not to have a technical documentation, but a documentation for the users, or at least information for the users. If you have a huge Power Apps catalog, for example, to provide the information what the specific app will be used for. And also these Power or Copilot features to have a better data quality, like searching for the domain name and prevent you from adding editing an email, for example, to test.com and receiving an error message that this is not a supported domain, or not that this domain is not available, will help you to get a better data quality. Personally, I tested the Copilot features for Power Automate, so using native language to create a Power Automate flow, or I think it was named Ideas with the Power Apps before, to natively say what you want to achieve within Power Apps. At the beginning of this year, I think April, May, when it was released first, and at this point of time, I was not convinced. It was really restricted to some use cases, but I haven't had the chance to test it with the new updates.
Interesting journey.
Coming back to your last question, give me a second. What's your first question? Entire screen. You should see the browser now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the article I meant, where who is it? To look for the name.
Probably.
Yeah, or Aurelian Clare. Yes, yeah. He wrote a really large huge blog article, as you can see, and also a video. And he wrote about the finance operations within the Power Platform Admin Center, as you can see. And then what you need to do to set up F&O Visual Studio to connect then your developer environments with the Power Platform and use it. So I can post
looks super easy.
Yeah, really easy, and you can do it in in a few minutes. I don't know. I think the video is also more than an hour, and here you also can see ALM is mentioned using DevOps and the pipelines, and not the pipelines in the managed environments. So I think this would be this is not the use case for the Power Platform pipelines, I would say.
Yeah. In 5 years, it will be low code.
I think Lane mentioned consider F&O as the next step in the Power Platform at the beginning of the year. That was what he. Yes, Jonas, that's the one. I wanted to share the link.
Lone, have we already shared the slide for the next meeting? Oh. Lone, we cannot hear you.
Yes, I can try to share it again so we can see it. I know one of the presenters is already here. So in the next meeting, we have something about generative AI. I think that's a session you set up, Ludwig. And then we have Harald, who will tell us about the connections between the different connections between finance and operations and customer engagement. And that will be on site in Munich. So welcome to join in the office for the people who are in Munich already.
And the Lego dinosaur will also be part.
Yeah. The happy Legos will also be there. I think that will be you, Ludwig, right?
Yeah, let's see. I have a small budget at the moment. Or too many Lego things.
So yeah, that's what we have in plan for the next time. And let's see if Jonas will also present at some time about his oven adventure and make Ludwig a pizza.
Yeah, Jonas, we need to talk. I also use Arduinos and these kind of things. You have to show me.
I got a new toy, by the way. So a company called Opta is creating PLCs based on Arduinos now, and they contain Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so you're able to connect them to MQTT, so you can upload IoT information to F&O using these.
How much is
blocks.
that?
I'm not saying. I think it's 230 euros.
Okay, forget it. Next year or for Christmas.
But it's more reliable than.
Do we want to stop the recording, Ludwig? So,
I will stop it.
Maybe one information